So I've been playing as a Wood Elven Bard at level 10 in my D&D 5th edition game with the Dwarven Barbarian, the Goliath Fighter, and the Human Wizard. Recently, we encounter an adult red dragon. The party start joking around about me seducing the dragon, which at first I found funny, but they would not let it go. Eventually, the DM got involved and started pressuring me to seduce the dragon. It was no longer fun for me because I did not want my character to do something like that. But eventually my DM literally says, I just do it without asking me. And then says, I now have dragon herpes and have died and now need to make a new character even though I never agreed to do this. I'm probably going to leave this group. That is probably, no, almost definitely for the best. We've seen forced character death. We've seen forced romance. Neither are good. Together, they're really, really not good. Though I never assumed that the combination of the two would result in dragon herpes. I missed 58 seconds ago when that phrase wasn't a thing in my brain. So recently I set up a Discord for playing D&D online, as you do. I had previously been in a different server with online friends, but due to major scheduling issues caused by being on 3 different continents, we had to effectively stop. So still wanting to DM, I posted on r/LFG. I have a few rules. 1, be nice. 2, you can bring homebrew races and classes, but they will be at my discretion. 3, no power gaming. So I get a pretty large amount of replies and pick some people, largely at random. I create the server, DM some invites, and everybody joins. We will call the players Paladin, Barbarian, Metalhead, he hasn't yet sent his character, and Emo. Emo DMs me on Discord, asking if he can use his homebrew, which he sends to me. It's on a website, which I've never heard of before, but I'll manage. I go on, read through, and it's a rework of Dragonborns. This should have been my first warning. I read the first page, seems fine. He's written interesting things like a burrowing speed for one subrace and a buff to intimidation for another. Seeing this and not noticing the page length, I say, sure. Then I look back, and oh baby, here we go. The chromatic Dragonborn races had fairly well-balanced, mechanically interesting abilities. The metallic Dragonborn had downright broken abilities, from a 50-foot cone of DC 15 saves or becoming unconscious as a breath weapon to 2d8 stat drain in that same area. Then it just keeps going. There's a Dragonborn subrace for I believe every single dragon or dragon adjacent creature that has ever been printed. He even included the pink dragon. I respect this, however, credit where it's due. Platinum dragons, yellow dragons, orange dragons, and whatever the dragon version of Io is called. I give some constructive feedback saying the chromatic dragons are well made, but the rest are really, really strong. Understatement of the century. Many of them can one-shot a Tarrasque at level 7 if it whiffs a con roll. He says he will try and balance them. I think it's fine. I am asked what exactly is allowed. I say just about anything from source books, excluding things like modern weapons, future weapons, and the like. Emo asks if he can play Mystic. This should have been another warning. I say, sure, why not? Emo asks if he can use one of his homebrew races, the Wyvernborn. By now, I'm not really sure, but after some negotiation with him, and a promise from him to ease the stats up, I say, sure. We even think up a neat backstory, that he's a failed experiment at creating new life, giving him this strange form and psychic powers. Sounds neat, I let it go. Several days pass, Paladin and Barbarian send me characters. They're fine, interesting characters with great hooks. Emo hasn't sent me anything yet. That's fine, probably just taking a while. Then Emo sends me his sheet. It is a PDF. I download and open it. Emo has basically maxed stats. Damn, his lowest stat is a 17. Most of them are 19s or 20s. I ask him, how? He says he rolled really well. I point out that 4d6, even at their best, cannot give him the stats he has. This is explained by his various stat boosts from his homebrew race, which he changed, sent to me, and then reverted to the previous version, and his ability from a different homebrew race he also made. I point out that his odds of getting 3 17s or 18s are 0.34%. He says he'll roll again, starts saying numbers, I don't trust him, saying I will reroll. Then I read some more. He is a mystic, level 5. He has twice as many disciplines as he should have too. Oh, it gets better. You know how many character sheets have the backgrounds, organizations, and so forth on a separate page? He used that to cram in all his disciplines because he didn't have enough space for his BS. Now for his homebrew race. He has a flying speed of 30 feet. He has natural 13 plus dex armor. He has a 2d6 piercing natural weapon and does 1d8 poison damage a round and gives the poison condition for a perfectly fair 10 minutes. 100 rounds. Not to mention, he has proficiency and some other magic boosts. I decide enough is enough. He broke one of the very, very few rules I had in so many ways. I banned him from the Discord. And that is where the story ends. With any luck, the remaining players and some others I invited will have fun with the Kruthik hive I have prepped for them. I am excited for this Dungeon Master. Kruthiks are awesome. I think they're kind of underrated, honestly, and I haven't been able to use them properly myself, if I'm being honest, but one day, my friends. But anyway, point is, let's talk about emo. Emo is not my definition of a power gamer. My definition of a power gamer is someone who uses the rules to their advantage. Now, can that be a problem? Yes, at times it can be a problem if they're not fitting within the confines of the game that you're playing. If you have one player holding back the dam, so to speak, that can be an issue. However, often I think power gamers are one of those problem players you can just talk to, and usually the problem will resolve itself, because those people who know how to exploit the rules of the game usually are experienced with the game and understand probably where you're coming from. Now, as for emo, this isn't really a power gamer. I think this guy's just a straight up cheater. This person is crafting homebrew specifically so they could be the most powerful person at the table. That is their goal. And that's just not a great goal in a game where you're supposed to be playing with other people. And on top of that, blatantly ignoring the DM's requests, not great either. But, on the other hand, this horror story ended before the game even started. That's a plus. Background. For my first experience as a DM, I proposed the campaign to two of my friends who had never played TTRPGs before, but were willing to try. Luckily, it was a colossal hit, and 3 sessions later, they had invited a couple more friends to form a party of 4. One of the newer players, who I'll call Terry, had some experience with the game, which I found reassuring given my lack of experience. This changed pretty quickly when he told me he had created a character named Terry, who had the same job and background as the IRL player. Despite the concerns from myself and other players that Terry was treating our fantasy setting as a meme, I told the group that there was no right way to play D&D and we shouldn't jump to the conclusion that he wasn't a good fit for our group. I was wrong. 2 sessions later, he inexplicably separates himself from the group to investigate a shady NPC on his own. Not a bad decision per se, but he didn't try to convince anyone to join him. He just let everyone else decide in their course of action, then took a different path himself. I managed to switch between his story and the main party story pretty successfully, but then the BBEG showed up at Terry's location. I introduced the bad guy in a menacing way, explaining how she intimidates the crap out of the NPC and orders half a dozen men at her command to raid his house. Being a level 1 character, I fully expect Terry to run away and tell the group what he saw, but instead, he lies in wait and attacks when he is found. Even after I tell him out of game, "Your actions sound sacrificial," he still sticks around to fight, and he dies. To be fair, he took it well and accepted the consequences. This was actually a good thing at first because it demonstrated to the rest of the group that actions have meaning and player character death was possible. The only thing is that Terry's behavior did not change. The next player character he made was his twin brother, also named Terry. Over the next way too many sessions, Terry would more often than not separate himself to pursue his own adventures, and I stupidly let him do it. After a while, since the stick wasn't working, I thought I would try the carrot. I constructed an entire arc specifically for his character. I had Terry's parents get kidnapped by an evil organization, and the group needed to travel to a pirate island to investigate. I even named the parents after Terry's IRL parents to match the IRL name of his character. After talking with Terry out of game, he seemed very engaged and happy with the plot I had come up with. All that needed to happen was for him to rally the other characters to join him on this mission. As many of you have guessed, that didn't exactly happen. They managed to stick together to get to the island, mostly because Terry didn't have enough money to get there without help. However, once they arrived and discovered the location of his parents, in the fireplane, Terry literally messaged me mid-combat to say he was sneaking away from the party to steal a ship and sail away alone. I knew this would not go over well with the rest of the group, but I wrongly told myself that respecting player agency was more important. As soon as I started to describe Terry slipping away, another player, whom I will call Joel, blew up. Joel loudly berated Terry's actions as a player and called out his entire history of adverse behavior. Another player chimed in more calmly, explaining that it was difficult trying to roleplay with someone that didn't care to share the experience as a group. What did I do during all this? I sat there silently, wishing I had confronted Terry about this sooner instead of enabling him and pretending everything was fine. It was honestly chilling to hear how passionate my friends were in praising the game. I had radically underestimated how much it meant to them, as well as to a degree that Terry had been souring their experience. After the session, Joel messaged me to apologize for his outburst. Seeing the situation in this new light, I apologized to him for letting the problem fester for so long. Then, I had a private conversation with Terry. I know how satisfying it would be to read about how I kicked him from our group for playing D&D as if it were Skyrim, but that's not what happened. Our group of players was comprised of friends, and I wasn't willing to sever relationships over a game. We discussed what had been off-putting about his behavior, and he acknowledged his faults, claiming he was trying to be a playful antagonist to the group. I don't fully believe this claim, but I can see he felt genuinely sorry for the trouble he caused and was at least willing to try to change. Everyone made amends, and we played for several more sessions before Terry started flaking and not showing up to the game. After a point, we silently parted ways. New rules were established to handle player conflicts following the lessons we learned, and the rest of us continued to present day, where we just celebrated our campaign's 2-year anniversary, and we're still going strong. Even though Terry's redemption didn't last for the long haul, scheduling and flaking are the real demons of Dungeons & Dragons after all, Terry did show some degree of clemency and did try to make the game better. That is great. Now, of course, trying to be the antagonist of the party, I think that can work if you're good enough to do it. I've talked to Whistle While You Work. She's another YouTuber. She played with JoeCat, and she did this in some of her home games, and it worked out great for her because she was in communication with her DM and, to a degree, the players as well. However, Whistle is also a great role player who puts a lot of work into her characters and doing them right. I don't think Terry is that kind of guy. And also, quite frankly, I think he's lying about wanting to be the antagonist. I think he was really just screwing around. That brings us to our next point. Terry is screwing around. Terry wants to go off on their own and be the Skyrim player, and yeah, that's not great. This is a group game. We've covered this before. This is kind of a weird version of main character syndrome. Super independent character syndrome. We'll term that right here, right now. Super independent character syndrome is probably what Terry has. Somebody who wants to go off on their own, do their own adventure, not necessarily wanting to be the main character, but just wanting to do their own thing with or without the party, and that's not great. You're supposed to be working together, and frankly, the DM's mind can only be split in 2 places for so long. I can barely handle that myself. But with all that being said, I'm glad to see this group is still going strong. A few friends and I were running a heavily homebrewed version of a campaign based loosely around the rules of the Dark Eye setting and the game FTL, Faster Than Light. Essentially, they were part of a crew of a small starship, with everyone choosing their race, class, and position on the crew: pilot, engineer, shields guy, weapon guy, etc. The only part I wholly stole from FTL was that every part of the ship could be damaged individually, so an enemy ship could specifically cause damage to the weapon systems, which would then need some skills, repair kits, scrap, etc. to fix. I hooked the party with a little mystery about a strange alien monolith being found in a few planets across the galaxy and causing people to go crazy, and off they went. I was the DM for the campaign and probably should have been a little more heavy-handed, but I didn't want to risk breaking the group's fun at the time. The first few sessions went really well, and everyone found their groove. We're all sci-fi nerds, so they had fun making call-outs and Star Trek style and role-playing the bridge dialogue. The ship got upgraded, they installed new, more powerful weapons and such, and made a lot of progress on the main story. They were in the midst of defending a mining outpost which had found one of the monoliths from a small squad of mercenaries. With a few bad rolls and an unintended combo in the enemy composition, basically the mercs had 2 ships which had very high evasion, and the player ship didn't have any point defense and was mostly focused on taking out larger vessels. Anyway, that caused them to have way too much damage to carry on. So they landed at the mining outpost. The engineer got to repairing the ship's damage, 2 crew members got to exploring, and the last went to pick up their reward from the outpost's administration. The last one is the problem player, Vic. I hadn't had any real problems with him, but he was very invested in roleplay, and his character was more on the edgy side. He was a veteran in the fleet and our weapons guy, and to cut him some slack, he was pretty good at sussing out the weaknesses of the enemy builds I'd throw at them, but he was also very much a it's what my character would do kind of guy. So he went to pick up the reward, which included a clue for the campaign, a video log showing the thieves of the monolith flying away alongside their ship registration. He was returning to the ship when he suddenly sidetracked and asked me if there was a black market of some kind here. I said sure, because there was, and let him find a small roadhouse/tavern run by a cousin's, uncle's, nephew's branch family of a larger pirate clan. The place was tiny, a gambling ring and some contraband, so I thought he was just being a bit edgy by mingling with smugglers and pirates, so I let him. The other players did their thing, bought a souvenir, and rejoined the engineer to continue patching up the ship. But Vic was now full-on gambling in a den of iniquity. The others had no idea where he was, and his rolls were very bad, with disadvantage because the people he was with were cheating, obviously, so they spent a while trying to find out where he was. He first just lost the reward, and then his own character's money, and all the while, I was hinting at the guys he was with not being honest, but he just kept going. Eventually, the crew did find him, but he just bet their ship in a game of cards, and if they tried to intervene, they'd probably get gunned down by the entire pub. He lost, of course, and the ship was gone. I should have probably put an end to it right there because the mood at the table was getting sour, but I improvised a Grand Theft spaceship side quest about stealing back their vessel and getting out of there. Night falls, the crew sneaks into the spaceport undetected and is about to board in secret when he says, "I pull out my pistol and shoot the guard in the head." I was unironically baffled at what he was doing. Like, is he trying to get everyone killed? Sure enough, the shot misses, and instantly the whole port's guard is shooting the crew, trying to be sneaky. This was maybe a month ago, and I'm still salty about it. Everyone seemed to have fun with it. The whole party got super into the roleplay aspect of space travel. I had a whole story planned out and everything, and then one guy has to go and ruin it. You'd be surprised how much a single event like this can really sour a D&D game. Now, of course, one bad roleplay moment, even one as, bad as this, can be overcome by some candid conversation. However, by the looks of it, that guy in question was not interested in said conversation. They seemed very bored with what was going on, which is just not a very good look. If you're not having fun with your D&D game, that's okay. You're not committing a crime by not having fun, but you need to talk to your DM about that. You can't just let that sit and fester and then create your own fun that ruins the enjoyment for everyone else at the table. If you find yourself counting the minutes until the end of the game, that's not normal. You're supposed to be having a good time. Talk to your dungeon master about that. Try to find some sort of compromise, some sort of way that you can have fun in this game while everyone else is also having fun at the same time. That is the goal. The goal is for the whole group to have a good time. If that's not going to work out and you think you just don't fit with this group, that's okay as well. There's nothing wrong with walking away and finding a group that fits you better. That's clearly not what that guy in question did, and that's a damn shame that campaign had to die for it. During Session 0, the DM and 2 out of 3 players expressed wishes for a roleplay-heavy game where combat would be a rare occurrence. The DM explained that the part of his world we would start the campaign was in a frontier town led by a famous war hero. Also mentioned by the DM during Session 0 was that there was an element of speciesism in this part of the world, and that while we were free to choose any game race we wanted, there would be some choices that would have a harder time fitting in as a result of prejudice that we would have to overcome. It would also take place in a Forgotten Realms style homebrew setting. So to recap, the campaign would be heavy on roleplay, light on combat, contain elements of speciesism at the start, and have a high fantasy low-tech focus. One player chose to be a true neutral human sorcerer warlock with serious trust issues and a knack for herbalism and alchemy. I chose to be a neutral good changeling bard storyteller and a hobby diplomat with a hero complex, hiding in human form. The third player, the one that the story is about, chose to play a chaotic good, warforged, combat-focused warlock that had little to no memory of his past, no personality to speak of, and insists on describing himself as a robot. The DM did allow this, but was pretty clear on how this would impact his character's reception in the world and also his role in the party. All of us asked the player if he really understood what kind of campaign this would be, and he insisted that he did, and he wanted to go through with this. So, after 4 to 5 sessions where this player soon had been the most forgotten part of the party and was just there in the background because we had all but given up on trying to engage with him in-game since there is no real response to get from him, we finally come to last session where the title of the post happens. Horror story starts here. The leader of the town had arrested a very respected figure in town without good cause. This town is a powder keg looking for a spark. Our party has an interest in rescuing this arrested person and also reason to believe the leader is involved with forbidden necromancy. We are explicitly told that we, under no circumstance, must confront the leader. He is known to be extremely powerful and would easily kill us all if provoked. We are told that this leader is leaving the house that night and that there will probably be 3 to 4 guards there. Guards that we know nothing about whether or not they are complicit in their leader's suspected, not even proven actions. AKA, we assume them to be innocent until proven otherwise, and should not kill or even confront anyone unless we have no other choice. We have a few invisibility potions on hand, and as a changeling with glamored armor, I have the ability to impersonate people as an action. There is one guard outside the building. We neutralize him with a sleeping dart and hide him in an outhouse. I impersonate the same guard and lure the 2 guards outside after the others use invisibility potions or spells. The 2 of them sneak into the house unnoticed and start to search the premises. After the problem player used the power of metagaming and heard how the 2 guards had spoken to my disguised character about a hidden trapdoor out in the stables, the problem player immediately stops searching the house and sneaks back out. He manages to get outside and is in the clear, but chooses to stand invisible by the door, greatsword drawn, and waiting for the guards. When they came back and attacked him, without ever suspecting his presence, he attacks one of them. The rest of the session is taken up by a panicked fight that consists of my character trying to subtly help without blowing his cover, another trying to escape and leg it up the nearest alley to hide, but not managing this because a bloody robot is blocking the door with a pointless melee fight. The battle goes magical and things blow up. We are forced to kill all 3 guards inside, one of which was unfortunately killed by my character's very forced and panicked hand. When confronted by my character about why the robot would do this, he responds with a shrug and statement, "I'm just impatient." We find the trapdoor, rescue the person we came for, and another NPC known to us that is unconscious. When we climb up, we are confronted with the town leader. You know, the guy we are in no way able to survive in a fight against. He tells us that we are to hand over the unconscious NPC at once. The other NPC, the one we were attempting to rescue, then sacrifices himself in order for the rest of us to escape with the unconscious one. We found a hiding spot and ended the session there. Now, 2 out of 3 players have absolutely no clue how to be able to forgive or forget this without going unacceptably out of character to do so. One of us had serious trust issues from his character from the start and just wants to get away from this walking death trap that's supposed to be a companion. My character is a definite supporter of not killing anyone whatsoever, if it can all be helped. Killing someone in cold blood is definitely traumatic for him. We fear that the town that 2 of us have spent 6 sessions getting to know, making friends in, and starting to consider home is now lost to us. This is extremely likely as all bridges were burned in this situation. I struggle to see any way for the group to continue as it is. We haven't discussed it as a group yet, as we would like to give this player a chance to come up with an in-game way to salvage the group dynamic. But I'm not optimistic. I'm just impatient. Come on, man. The disappointment is palpable for this one. This is definitely a case of a player not fitting in with the rest of the group. Not the worst thing we've ever seen, though you should join games where you feel like you are compatible with the rest of the group. You're not always going to be compatible with every D&D game you play. That's just going to be natural. It's like dating, as Ginny D says. You're not going to find your soulmate on the first date, probably. At least I have no idea. Point is, our problem player is clearly not the roleplay heavy type. This is a player who wants to kill things with their epic Warforged fighter, and that's okay. though at the same time they are joining a game where combat is something that is generally dissuaded, and a game where roleplay is a major part of it. A game where the characters don't want to kill anyone is kind of awkward when you have a person who is murder hoboing their way through every situation. Also, this guy made a Warforged in a generally low-tech setting, which is an interesting choice. Could have been something that would have been interesting to play out in a roleplay heavy game, but yeah, I don't see any sign of that here. Alright, and that's going to be it for today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. If you guys enjoyed it, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then please check out Tabletop Tavern Tips, where I give advice to both DMs and players, old and new, and while you're there in the cards, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. We're not in Skyrim anymore, to let me know you made it to the end of the video. And like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.